you have been following the AI industry, you may have probably noticed that every few weeks somebody announces a bigger model with more parameters. NVIDIA's latest announcement, Nemotron 3 Ultra, is interesting because they're not just talking about making AI larger, they are talking about making AI work longer, remember more, and complete more complex tasks. And that could have major implications for the future of AI agents, AI safety, and AI governance, right? Let's talk about it. Most of today's AI systems are built on what is known as the transformer architecture. So without getting too technical, imagine that you are studying for an exam, right? Every time that somebody asks you a question, you go back to read every single book, every note, every article before answering that question. Well, you'll probably give a good answer, but it's expensive and it takes time. Look around us, it even becomes harder as the amount of information accumulates over time. So that is essentially one of the major challenges of traditional transformer models, which means that the more information they need to keep track of, the more computationally expensive they become. This particular challenge is one of the reasons that researchers have been exploring alternatives. For instance, in 2023, About Go and 3DAO introduced a model called Mamba, which proposes a different way of handling long sequences while also being computationally efficient. NVIDIA is attempting to build on some of those ideas using what they call state space models, or for short, SSMs. Think of it this way. Instead of reopening every textbook whenever somebody asks you a question, you read that book once, take detailed notes, and carry the information that matters the most forward. So when a new question arrives, you rely on your notes instead of reading the entire textbook again. This is the intuition behind SSMs. The Mamba paper actually shows that this approach could compete with traditional transformer models while also scaling more efficiently even as context grows. And according to NVIDIA's Nemotron technical reports, Nemotron 3 combines these Mamba-style approaches with traditional attention mechanism, creating what they describe as a hybrid architecture. In other words, NVIDIA is trying to get the best of both worlds. But here is another important piece. Nemotron 3 is also a mixture of experts model. Imagine walking into a large hospital that have, say, 300 specialists, cardiologists, neurologists, dermatologists, radiologists. But when you arrive with an eye problem, the hospital does not just go to all of those 300 doctors. They reroute you to a specialist who is more qualified to help you. AI models are increasingly beginning to work the same way. So instead of activating the entire model for every task, a routing mechanism activates only the experts most relevant to the problem. This is known as mixture of experts, or MOE for short. Recent research surveys on MOE architectures suggest that this has become one of the most important strategies for scaling AI because it allows models to become much larger without activating all their parameters at once. So you get the benefit of scale without paying the full computational price every single time. Now, here is where things become even more important. NVIDIA is not building this model primarily for chatbots. They are building it for agents. And that makes a huge difference because a chatbot is like asking a receptionist for direction. You ask the question, the receptionist answers, that interactions end there. An agent, on the other hand, is more like hiring a personal assistant. The assistant schedules meetings, search database, read documents, use software tools, check information, write reports, correct mistakes, and continues working long after the original request. This requires memory, it requires planning, and it requires reasoning across long chains of action. In fact, NVIDIA's technical report places significant emphasis on agentic reasoning benchmarks instead of just simple question answering tasks. And this somehow tells us a lot about where they think the future of AI is heading to. Before we get carried away by AI futures, here is something to remember. Long context does not automatically mean long understanding. Researchers have recently developed a benchmark called RULER to test long context language model. And what they found was that many models could in fact accept enormous amount of information, right? But when asked to reason across those enormous amounts of information, their performance usually decline. So think about a student bringing in 10 textbooks into an examination hall. But the thing is that having access to those 10 textbooks does not necessarily mean that the student understands the material, right? The same principle applies to AI. So while NVIDIA's claims about large context window, faster inference, and lower cost are impressive, independent evaluation will still be necessary. The most interesting part in all of this is not even the architecture. It is what this means for AI governance, AI risk, and AI security. Because historically, we worried about whether a chatbot gave the wrong answer, right? That is still important. But agentic system changes the conversation because now we have to ask a different question, right? What happens when AI remembers information across days or weeks? What happens when it can access database, call APIs, use software tools, interact with external systems, or make decisions with limited human supervision? So the concerns here is no longer about what model says, but more about what the model does. So, and that is why researchers working on AI safety, model evaluation, trustworthy AI are actually increasingly shifting their attention towards oversight, accountability, and the behavior of autonomous systems. And I think this is where announcements like Nemotron 3 Ultra becomes really significant because they're not just showing us where AI models are going, they are showing us where AI systems are going. So the next phase of AI race may not be about who builds the biggest model. It may be about who builds the most capable, persistent, efficient, and trustworthy agent. And if NVIDIA is right, that future may arrive much sooner than many of us expect.